Hey, good to see you again. Thanks for stopping by the shop today. This week, it's time to leather and do tool work on this chopper pan seat that is for this Ironhead here. Spears is wrapping up the artwork and all the painting and clear coating, and it's crazy design. I can't wait to show you, but he should be done with it this week. So it's time to get going back on this project. Once again, get it done. Give it to somebody that's just going to enjoy it and ride the snot out of it. Leather tooling. Do I know what I'm doing? Yeah. Welcome back to Butler Customs Motorcycle Shop. Now, before we get started, there are some things that you're just basic things you're going to have in order to do leather work. So as you can tell, I haven't used this in a while, but this is a little tooling kit that I got at the leather store when I first bought my leather to do a seat with. So you'll see that these are just different punches. That's got a little circly decorative thing. That's a little kind of corner thing. This is like a flower leaf stamp. This right here is a little kind of oval stamp as well. A little seashell stamp and another little oval stamp. And then this right here is just a little tool to kind of tighten this. And what this is your most important thing here. This spins freely. This right here is your actual kind of cutting tool that you'll use to make your outline with. So this will be your main tool here that you'll use. You can pretty much do just about everything design-wise with this tool, and then one of your little kind of oval tools, if you will, the ones like this. So this is angled, and it'll give you a good little angle. Now listen, I'm not a leather tooling expert. I just wanted to try it, to do it myself, and to put my own designs that I wanted, and it worked out, I think, pretty well. The very first one I ever did, oh gosh, probably 7, 8 years ago now, was this one. And this has held up really, really well. I used a good rawhide leather, and over time, like I said, this is 8 years old, had a lot of miles on it, even starting to kind of curl up and age at the end, and I like it. So it says Storytown Customs. That was what I called my little motorcycle hobby adventure at the time. And then my wife said, when we started growing and wanted to start a small business, she's like, well, what if we move? Storytown's kind of the name of the road we're on. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So we changed it to Butler Customs. But the cross is still nice and good in it. The aged of the leather, I love all the different, little just nicks, and over time how it's grown and aged. It's really nice and held up really well. And of course, these are just hand riveted in, and my rivets have all held in. I've never had to replace a rivet on here. So these have been really good. So besides needing tool, another thing you're going to need are actual rivets. So Tandy Leather, that's where I went in Nashville to get these. I'm hoping they're long enough. I didn't think about the length. I know they're wide enough, but I don't know if they're going to be long enough. Hopefully they are, because the leather that I got is really a thick rawhide leather. I got a whole, I think they're called quarters or hind or something. So I've got plenty to work with, and I could probably do 6 or 7 seats out of this if I wanted to. Now, as far as doing bags and things like that and stitching, I can't do that. I probably could, but I just don't have the stuff to do it. And then this, of course, is a dye. So this is a show brown dye. And the good thing about this is it's a little darker. And so I can lighten up areas I want, and then my design will still stay dark and kind of pop out. So I decided to go with this. I bought some new dye because the other dye I had hadn't been used in a while and kind of old, and they don't make the brand that I used before that I really liked. So I'm hoping this will work good for us and won't be too dark for us. So that's kind of the tools you're going to need. And now we'll get into just cutting out a rough pattern of the leather, getting it on the seat kind of where we want it, do the holes in the leather so I kind of know where I'm going as far as where to put my design. The design that I kind of chose to go with, I never could come up with a name for the bike. I had Chase, the pinstriper, come up, and he's doing scallops. And so the scallop that he's going to do on the tank and the oil tank and the gas tank and even the rear fender is going to be kind of like this. He kind of showed me this. So I'm going to do this right here as a design, and this will be darker. And then we're going to do the Butler Customs kind of logo in there. I don't know yet if I'm going to do the actual bike, because on my design, on my logo, the bike has a lot of detail in it. And I'm not sure if I can tool all those little spokes and things like that. So I might just do this font and this, not like in a block like this, but maybe curve it all the way over with our scallops coming up. So let's try that. Like I said, I got plenty of leather. If that doesn't work out, I can just start over and make a new one. So on this leather, I've just got it sitting on a flat surface on top of my toolbox. I've got the leather turned inside out so I can mark on the back side of it, and I'm just going to put my hand up under this curve and get this leather to kind of set a little flat. Now on this pan seat, this came off of a different bike than the Ironhead. I think it's come off of my dad's 750 chopper, Honda chopper. This is kind of a covering. I'm just going to leave it on here. I'm hoping my rivets are thick enough, long enough to go through there. I think they will be. If not, I'll just have to go back and get some more rivets. It had screws and bolts under it, but we're going to just go back with the actual rivets. I think that'll look nicer. But I want to get it kind of flat as I can, and I want to give myself plenty of room here just for curving and things like that. I'm going to come over here, and it's going to be a lot of excess, but that's okay. I'd rather it be too big and us have to cut some stuff off than to be too short after we've cut it and tooled it and all that good stuff. So there's my seat outline there. And all we got to do is just cut that out, and then we can see how it's going to fit on here. Now, these were ground down to hold these springs on. I'm going to be replacing these springs, if you remember, with those scissor springs. One of you subscribers gave me that idea, and that they're real thin and it gets me around my frame and it'll set a lot better. But down here where they've got this brace put on that goes actually through the top tube of my backbone, they did not grind these down, and these stick up quite a bit. So I'm going to spend some time getting these a little bit flat like this through here. But we can go ahead now and cut this out, and then we'll start tooling this on this pattern. I've got some scissors out here, but these are extremely dull. I'm not sure how these are going to cut. Yeah, not good. Those are not going to cut good. I do have these snips. I wonder if these will work better. No, these are dull as well. Can I just cut it with my pocket knife, with my case knife? Yep. Can't tell you how many times that I have used this pocket knife for all kinds of stuff. And again, remember, this is just a rough outline. It'll give us plenty of room to go back and trim. It's actually doing pretty well. Surprised. So I'll make sure I go outside the line. I'm just going to keep cutting this off, and I'll get right back with you. All right, so we got our pattern out. And as you can see, we got tons of leftover layover around here. A lot of room to work. Some things I forgot to mention. Wash your hands. Make sure you have clean hands. If you get any oils or grease or anything on this raw leather, it's there. So make sure you work on a clean surface. I've got this foam here that I had laid down on the backside when I was cutting. So just make sure that your hands are clean. Now that we got our pattern down and it's kind of got a lot of room laid over everywhere, now we can go ahead and just start drilling our holes back here where they go, because what you don't want to do is start designing things with this flat and doing all of your tool work, and then when you get it on the actual seat and go to drill your holes, your artwork goes past or not lined up once you get everything squared up. So what I like to do is go ahead and get this seated where I'm going to seat it. Now we will glue this down and rivet so that this stays against this back curve and it curves down here. We will do all that, but we got to do our tooling first. So let's get our holes in there so I know kind of the perimeter of where I'm tooling, and I know that anything an inch outside of this hole we're cutting off. So that way I can kind of get my design balanced and lined up, and I can get those scallops going where they should go. The majority of this seat's going to be that scallop. And maybe even inside the scallop I can do some of those, spec designs and some maybe seashell designs on the outside. I don't know. But we'll look at some different things we can use. And I'll cut a piece of a corner off of my leather, and we can try different designs and see what would look good. But let's go ahead now and take care of these bolts right here that are sticking up. And then we can flip this over. Once that's done, we can kind of know where our holes are going to go. I like to start in the curve, so I can drill a hole there and drill a hole here. I can just take my finger and keep hands and keep up under there. This lays actually pretty good. It's not so thick that it doesn't curve with the seat, so we shouldn't have any trouble with that. I got these grinded down nice and smooth now. Cleaned off this a little bit. Now we're ready to go ahead and get our holes transferred over to our leather. Now to do that, you could hold here and then just go ahead and zip, 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 zip. But what I have found is that when you do that, you're holding this tool and you're trying to hold this with one hand, and it could get way off course for you. So here's what I do. I get my leather where it's set. I take a fine tipped Sharpie and I just go around the hole here on each one. Then when I take this off, we can just drill and we know where the hole is. This seat pan is so thin, you could probably use a better Sharpie. Let me see if I got a fatter Sharpie, because that fine tip is extra fine. Let's see. Oh yeah, this works pretty good. Now I might have to take this bracket off so that I can get down in those holes. There's all of our holes there except the last two down here. So that's how our pattern is going to set. So now my logo, when you take into account the rivets on this, is going to go kind of in here. But I want to go ahead and drill my holes because we don't tool from this side, we tool from this side. And by seeing visually my holes, then I know where things are. Now we're done with this till the pattern is done. And now we can just drill our holes. And again, guys, I'm no expert, okay, by any means. Well, hey, here's a tip. Don't ever drill around foam. Let's try something different. When that thing went through, it went through. I do have a hole punch. Maybe that would have been a little bit smarter to use. I don't know about you, but I love the way fresh leather smells. All right, so now with our holes in there, did I miss one? Yeah, I missed a hole right there. So let me fix that. Now all of our holes are in. Oh yeah, and that helped square things up. Now, when we go to do our design now, we can't look at this outside. We've got to just look at what's inside here. That's our playground right here. All right, so I got you riding piggyback on my shoulders. So I hope that you can see what I'm seeing. So here's our design we're going to go with. We're going to do these scallops here. Never done these before. So we got to remember that our pan seat comes out about a 1/2 inch is what goes past the rivets. So when we do the scallop design, kind of the whole portion right here is going to be all the way to the edge. If we just did the scallop on the inside, then this would be, I think it would kind of look weird. I want the scallops to look like they just run into the whole seat. We can actually just take us a piece of paper, get our holes where we know they are. We can kind of measure then how wide and long that our logo needs to be. So I just got a straight edge here. I don't want my logo being so tight. So let's go probably about right there. So then let's do our logo maybe about there. We'll say 6 1/4 inch. And now as far as our height, now we can move up here. We can find that. So as far as our height, we don't want to come down too low. We want to come a 1/2 inch off here. So that should be 5 1/2 there. Yep, it is. 5 1/2. So when we do our design, we want our design to be 6 1/2, 6 1/4 wide, and 5 1/2. All right, so I've got my logo here, and then I want to turn on my ruler. Okay, so that gives me my ruler right there. So this is locked into proportion so that as I drag, it will get longer. So we wanted to go 6 1/4, and then we'll print that. We'll see which one works better. While that's printing, I did take this bottom leather off. It's seen better days, and it was starting to curl down. And when it's on the bike, it was looking like the pan was bent. And you can see how thick the leather is that I buy. So a big difference, probably 2.5 times thicker. On the Pages program on my Mac, which is like Microsoft Word, this is supposed to be 6 1/2 inches, but when I did the little scroll thing, it was like 5 something. So you can see how small that is now that we have it on there. When I expanded the image out to where it actually read 6 1/4 on here, it made it quite a bit bigger. So I think we're going to use that. And with that size, I can kind of tuck it in, which will give me more room for my scallops down here. Now, of course, you won't see this block here. We're just going to outline the letters. And I am going to attempt, now that it's blown up, it doesn't really look that bad to do. Now again, don't be looking at this outside, it'll screw with your head. Be looking instead at the inside here, where this needs to set. Now we can come down here on this bottom hole and kind of see how we're lining up here. And I can even go up a little bit higher. We're going to have these rivets that are going to set about right there. So I like that. Let's take us some tape and just start taping things down. Right now, I'm just going to tape to the paper. And then down here, I'm going to tape all of it. Now I know that's not going to move. Now when you're tooling or getting your pattern laid on raw leather, it's very hard and it's very stiff. You want something to be able to indent so you have your pattern. So to do that, you'll want to have some water, and I'll take a shop rag and I'll get it wet. And then I want to peel this back, and I want my leather to be damp. This will soften the leather up so that when you make an indent, it shows through the leather. We want that to be good and moist. And now we can just lay that back down. Make sure all of our sides get down nice and good. And then we can start tracing outlines. If you've ever colored as a kid, and it won't be hard for you. I like to use just a ballpoint pen, and I'll just start kind of making heavy indentions. Not so heavy that I'm going through the paper, but heavy enough that I feel it setting down in that leather, making a groove in that leather. And surprisingly, it doesn't take long. Now, if you feel that your leather is starting to get hard and not smushed down as easy, well, just stop and wet the underside again and start all over. This is actually hard with this white and black background. If your paper starts tearing on you, that's usually a good indication that your leather's drying out. And the temperature, of course, has a lot to do with it as well. There we go. Okay, so see, I missed my E down there. So I need to lay this down and do the E again. That bottom part of the E. But you can see how you kind of missed something right there. See how those two lines don't line up where I started and stopped? But that's no trouble at all. I'll just get that a little damp again. And then I'll lay this back down and I'll do that bottom portion of my E. And we'll just wet this right here. And we'll start. See if we got all of our lines in. Oh yeah. Turned out pretty good there. I'm going to wet it pretty good because I'm going to spend a lot of time working on this. It's going to be hard, guys. I'm going to try to get everything, but I don't know. There's a lot of detail right here. And it's so hard to do. I wish I could have inverted it where I could see my pen marks. I can't see it against that black. I think we got everything. Let's see. Oh, check that out. All right, what do you think, guys? But there you go. I like it. Fits up in there good. And now when we do our scallops, they'll come up. We'll probably have to kind of freehand those and see how that turns out. But I'll clean off this leather really good. And once we dye it, it'll look even better. Turned out all right. Man, how am I going to do this? I don't know what to do. Some of you leather guys say, oh, here's what you do. You go do this and that, and it makes life easy. Now again, if you look at the outside, this is going to look beep, but it's actually not when you look at this. So, scallops. Where's my design here? Real lightly, like on this. And then my points. If I just freehand this like this. This is when I need spears. I don't. How do you? Gives me a newfound appreciation for his gift. That's for sure. I don't know, guys. What do y'all think? Does that look like scallops to you? It's a lot of room down here. On this up here, it kind of goes down a little deeper. I don't know. I don't like that design. It's like somebody squatting over Squatty Potty or something, you know? I just don't. It's not jiving for me. It's not jiving for me. Maybe if we brought it on down, maybe? Maybe it was just where it was up so high up here. What if we just brought this down? We can get rid of all this right here. Those could go off the edge. Yeah. What do you think about that? That might work. I think I'd be happy with that. And if it don't work out, we can always start back over. Point of no return. Here we go. Oh, I'm nervous, guys and gals. Let's see what we got. Hey! Hey, not too bad. Now we'll do probably some decoration around this, and we will do maybe those little speckly things in there. That'll take care of the potty squatty thing going on here. And then once those other lines come in, I mean, this is wider than this, but hey, disclaimer, I'm not a professional. Now, before we start tooling on this, let's talk a little bit about these tools, just so we got an understanding. So on this right here, you'll see that, you might not be able to see it, but you can sure feel it. These letters are raised. They look like they're coming off the leather. Then there's another tool that smashes down the leather around it. And then there's little designs here. Then inside the cross, there's another little pattern in here. And there are these little dots here. So my plan here on this is to just raise this, and this up like this. I don't know, guys. I'm afraid if I dot all of this in here like these dots here, I'm afraid with it being so much, it would almost look like a alligator skin or something like that. You know what I'm saying? What you want to do first when you start tooling leather to get any designs or to get it to raise up, you'll want to go around and actually cut this leather. What you're cutting is the top part of this hide. And then when you go back to tool, say we're using this beveled angled tool. So when I put the smaller end toward where I cut, it will cause this lettering here to pop up because the outside will be flattened. And we'll start up with the B. It's bigger letters. It's going to be a little bit easier for us to do. So we'll get that wet, and you want to keep your rag close and keep it wet. So I'll start here, and I'm actually just going to cut down and around into that leather. So I'm going to trace this all this top part and the scallops out first. And then we'll go back and we'll tool it as far as making it rise up. And what you'll see is that even if we mess up here, cutting out around the pattern here, when we go back to raise those letters up, we can actually kind of adjust our lines just a little bit. All right. So now when we go back and kind of mat around this and hammer it down, this will kind of pop up. I am rusty. I believe last time I turned the leather as I was turning this tool as well. That kind of helped me get the angles right that I wanted. All right, so I'm just gonna keep on going. I'll get back to you and then we'll start tooling. Okay, so now we're done with all the cutting. And once I got into it, some kind of memory came back. It was a little bit quicker to cut. Now that this is done, there's another step where you take this beveled kind of rounded edge here, and you're going to go around and tap down around where you cut on the outside of what you want to be exposed. So when we do that, these letters here will just come up off the leather. This one, and then all these details, I want to try my best to get them to raise up, but some of these are tight and small. And then this down here, we'll do the outside of this as well. That'll go out over here. I just use a little hammer, and there's kind of a rhythm you'll get into as far as pressure wise. So it takes a little bit to kind of get in a good rhythm, and I've not done this in years, so let's see how it goes. Of course, you need to wet again where you're working. We'll start here with the B. A little too much water there, but perfect. And what I want to do is take this sharp, so it bevels this way. So I want to take this sharp edge and go down, and then it smooths out the back. You don't want to go the other way. You want to take this sharp edge here. So let's just, and I'm going to move as I tap. And what it'll do is give it that beautiful outline there. So I'll just keep working. I'll do this letter with you, and then I will come back when we got it all done. They make little stands you can put your leather on and just kind of spin a wheel, but I don't do this enough for all that jazz. You want that water to soak in on that leather and soften it. That way when you tap, it'll go nice and deep. Your little bevel just kind of follows along the road. I don't know if you can tell or not, but now that B has raised up as the leather around it has been smashed down. And then we'll just keep going on over, doing this and this. And now on this down here, I'll go on the outside of this. Okay, so she's done. Whew, them spokes were a booger, but I got it. And then once we tan it, it'll be really nice. Those letters will pop out, they feel good, they'll stay out like that forever. I know this looks kind of plain, but my idea was let's do dark here and then light up here. So maybe that'll be a good contrast, but whatever you're going to do, if you're going to do some more decorative tooling around here to kind of make this pop out a little bit more, now would be the time. You really don't want to do it after you dye it. On that Ironhead, remember, we stripped it down to just bare metal. And it just come alive then. So I don't want to complicate things, make things too fancy. And this is literally taking me all day to do, because I just don't do it all the time. So I think at this time we're just going to go ahead and stain it. If you take a rag and dip it in here and then go with a grain kind of look and work it in, then you can get the depth and the darkness that you want. So I want this to be pretty light, and then this down here to be dark. So I'm going to start up here, and we're just going to kind of work it in with a cloth, really kind of slow, delicate. And remember, we're not too worried about all this out here. It's going to be cut off. But right in here, we want some good lines. I want to give it a good shake. And I think the instructions say, clean leather thoroughly, remove all old polish, and finish while damp from cleaning. Apply dry evenly with a dopper. A second coat of dye may be applied if required. After dyeing, remove excess surface dye by rubbing briskly with a soft cloth. For high gloss, spray with resin, but I've got a leather kind of boot cleaner that I use for my boots that does really good and gives a good shine and protection for that dye. Kind of wet an area here in the middle that we want. We'll apply quite a bit of water here just to let it kind of soak in and kind of flash up on us. And we should be able to do just this right here like we're doing. And we'll take us a cloth and fold it over a couple times. And then we'll just put some on this cloth here. Let this get a little drier. Oh gosh, about ruin that. Stuff's thin. And then once you start seeing kind of some of the dry kind of come back, let's just kind of give it a go. And then what we can do is just keep working that in. It's a little darker than I'm used to. Maybe we can bring some of that dark out. And we'll take a dry cloth and I just want to rub some of that off. Yeah, that's not coming off. Let's do a little bit of water on this corner here. That's what I need right there. Yeah, to do over again, I would buy a lighter brown because you can always go darker. It's harder to go lighter. It's a little too dark for me, but I believe we can get that off. I believe we can lighten it up a little bit. Now, I will not color those in because I want that to kind of glow behind there. So I'm going to leave that raw. Remember, we're cutting all this out. So I really like that. I want it to be a little more aged, but I don't know, that kind of, you can see the lightness in it. That kind of looks pretty good the way that is. Now, as a person rides on it, it will lighten up. As an example, you have this. This right here was the original darkness. So pretty close. A little bit lighter, how I like it. And then as the customer rode on this, this is the very first bike I built. My dad bought it. I built 1, 2, 3, 4 more just like it for other customers. Then my dad upgraded and he gave my son the very first bike I built. So my son, when we go on long rides, he's got a foam, like a padded seat that he puts on there. But this one is the original one, the very first tooling that I did. I know it's not perfect, but kind of like that. Got a nice kind of wood grain to it. Now for this down here, let's try to darken this up, and I may have to go to a sponge because I'm losing a bunch of fluid like this. But let's darken this up. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's a lot darker. Yes. And I don't want to streak this. I want this to be a different pattern. Maybe if I go back and buy another dye, I'll buy a darker dye here. But I think if we put enough coats on this, it should darken up for us pretty good and be a good contrast. All right, so bottle wise, I used not even half a bottle of this for this seat. So now, there is a pretty good contrast there. And I think with the design that Spears has on the tanks and the tins, that's going to look pretty good. All right, so I'm going to let that dry up, and I'm going to coat this with a leather cleaner, and that'll give it a nice shine. This should stay dark, and this should be a little lighter. So I like that contrast. I like the light coming through. It really makes it pop. What do you think? Are you still with me? Did you fall asleep? What do you think? Yay? Nay? I like it. Now, I know the scallops that Spears is doing is black and with raw metal. So I know that's going to turn out pretty nice. So with this being dark with scallops, I think it's going to match really well. Hopefully, but I guess we'll soon see. You're not going to believe this, but I went inside to get my boot polisher. I couldn't find my boot polisher. I think my third oldest son has it. The oldest one in the house still. I did find this, so I'm going to try a little sample on a piece I know I want to cut off. Maybe that'll give it just a little temporary shine and protection. But anyways, in Hoos and House, when I was passing by the table, he had just come back from Goodwill and bought some dress shoes. Look at that. Okay, so good example here. The old shoes I was talking about in the 90s. These probably came from the 90s style. Penny loafers, maybe? That's what they're called. I know that they used to stick a penny in there, maybe for good luck, maybe to go to the movies. I don't know, you tell me. What did the penny loafer, where did it get that name? Anyway, I digress. This is what I was trying to avoid by doing all this detail here and down in here and filling this up with detail. I didn't want it to look like a shoe. So I think what we got going on here is pretty good. So let's try this neutral color and try it on a little spot down here. Let me rub it in, see what we're going to get. I just don't want it to hurt the stain or to change the color, because it's got kind of like a blue hint to it, even though it says it's neutral. We'll try it up here. Okay, to me it feels like it took the slick away. So I'm just going to wait. My son went on a run. I'm going to wait till he gets back and find where my good boot polish is. So let's go ahead and get this riveted to the pan, cut it out, and call it a day. So we're ready for the rivets. Ready for the rivets. Oh man, that's going to look so good. Oh man, the way that's up there at the top and kind of thrown out at you up in your teethuses, that's going to look good. Now when we put these brass in, it's going to look even better. It's just really going to make this light in here pop. Let me get one in up here. So we're going to go all the way around with that, and that's going to look so good. I just hope they're long enough, but I guess we'll soon see. So I got these in. What I noticed was my holes weren't lining up. Some were, some weren't. So somehow or another, when I got to drilling, I got off. Shoot. I got off. So what I'm going to have are holes that don't line up. Shoot. And there's nothing I can do about that. The holes were already drilled. I can't do nothing about it. So it's going to have some different holes. I don't think I can fill that. Maybe I can repair it. I can rip this off and put another one on it. But I think for now, I'm just going to leave it with the imperfections of holes. It's got a story. But now I can raise this up. We can get some spray in here. Now the spray is not necessarily for up back in here. It's for this curve and this curve right here. So I want it to set flat. I don't want to put this on here and there'll be a bubble in there. So I'm just going to run some spray adhesive under here and down this right here. Okay, mistakes were made. Again, I'm not a professional at this, as you can see. So these rivets, they are not securing down just because there's not enough meat. They're not long enough. I tried to use the screw ones that came out of it. They're not long enough. So whatever leather they had on top of this seat, it was really thin like that back. I'm going to have to go and buy longer rivets. I might go with the screws just because I kind of like the way they look. These just kind of look almost new, too new. So I might go back with the screws, get them a little longer, and get some lock nuts on them or something like that. So you've got these holes here where I missed. If this was a customer's, of course, I would start all over. What I would do if I did it again, here's what I would do. I would just take a manila folder, tape it to this pan, and then cut around that. Then I would take that cutout template and put on my leather and trace around that. The way I did it was not good, and I hadn't done one in so long I just couldn't remember. So if you're watching the video, I apologize. That was probably not the best way to do it. If you've done this before, you were probably screaming at me. But I've got enough rivets in here. We can go ahead and cut and trim off, and it'll look a lot better. These holes, they're just there. I want to ride with it. It is what it is. It's got a story to it now. If somebody doesn't like this, or the holes just really bother them, maybe I can try to fill it with something. I don't know. You tell me. But regardless, I don't want the video to be delayed just because I got to go get some more accessories. So let's go ahead and cut this off. All right. So I got this on here. I took my knife and trimmed around to the edge here. And then I took a flap disc and just went around to smooth these edges out. And then I'll still take a file and kind of roll these edges over. And then I'll take some dye and just go around here. So all I gotta do now is go get my rivets or screws or whatever, but there's my seat. I think it turned out pretty nice. Can't wait to put this on, well, besides my holes. Now, listen, like I said, I'm a professional. No. If somebody was to hire me at the leather shop, I'd be fired the first day. But I love tooling. It was fun to do. Would I want to do it full time? No, but I had a blast. I hope you did as well. And if I led you astray on this, you can just email my wife. She's got a list of all the wrongs. So, I like it. I think it's going to look good. When you see it next time and the tins come in and all that good stuff, when we get back on the Ironhead, I'll have this fixed. If these holes bother me a lot, I'm probably going to redo it. But gosh, this took like 8 hours to do from start to finish, so I don't know. It's an old bike. It's a chopper. I don't want it to look pretty. That's why I really don't like these. They're too shiny. And the bike's got a dull, raw metal look. So I'll probably go back with the screws, although these would be a little more comfortable. But they're noticeable, those holes. Maybe I can find something to fill it in or something. I don't know. Maybe I could get somebody to stitch it. I don't know. But down here, they're really bad. I don't know how I got so far off, but I did. So maybe, if all else, you learn from my mistake. So do me a favor and tell your mom and them I said hi.